Okay, welcome everybody. I would like to call our meeting to order for our Board of Commissioner regular meeting, September the 22nd, 2020. I have asked our Mayor Pro Tem to lead us in our invocation, in our pledge, and Commissioner Smith to lead us in our invocation. We'll start with our invocation, and I'll stand.
Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for the opportunity you give us to live in this nation, in this state, and in this great community that we call home. Father, I pray that everything that we do tonight will be pleasing in your sight. I pray that you'll give each commissioner and the mayor and all our staff wisdom as we try to make the best decisions possible for the benefit of our community and our citizens. Lord, I do pray that you'll touch those ones that's been stricken by COVID, Lord. I pray for our military. I pray for peace in our land, Lord. And I pray that soon we'll be able to see our nation get back to some sense of normalcy and have this pandemic and some of the unrest behind us, Lord. Father, we just ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
You know, one area that we tend to leave out that I think is so important is our healthcare workers. Those folks they've been in a war too, in a battle, and God bless them all, and we appreciate them and what they do for all of us. Okay, this is a virtual meeting, and at this time I'm going to ask our town manager to review the meeting protocol for public participation as it relates to this virtual meeting. Adam?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Board. It's good to be with you this evening. All attendees that have joined the meeting tonight have joined muted. There is a public comment period near the beginning of the meeting. However, there is not a public hearing scheduled for this evening. Therefore, the only time to address the town board is during the public comment section of the meeting. If the public wishes to address the town board during the public comment period, they will need to notify the town host that they wish to speak. For the public that is online this evening for this meeting, for your benefit, if you are joining the meeting online and wish to speak, please press the raise hand button in the Zoom application. If you are joining the meeting via telephone, please press *9 to raise your hand. After you've raised your hand, you will enter into a queue. When the public comment period begins, Mayor Byrne will ask the town host to recognize you to speak by calling out your name or your last 4 digits of your telephone number. You will be unmuted at that time and allowed to address the town board. We ask you to begin your comments by stating your name and address for the public record. The public is asked to keep all comments to 3 minutes so that all that wish to speak can be heard in a timely manner. Once you have finished addressing the town board, you will be muted for the remainder of the meeting. And this concludes the protocol for tonight's meeting, Mayor.
Thank you, Adam. We'll move on to 3A, approval of the minutes from the September 8th, 2020 regular scheduled town board meeting.
Mayor, make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 4A, there are no public presentations for our meeting tonight. We'll move to the public comment period. At this time, the IT director will call on individuals that have virtually raised their hand by way of the Zoom app or by telephone. Those wishing to address the town board will be unmuted one at a time. As a reminder, public comment is for those wishing to speak on matters that are not subject to a public hearing. Those speaking are asked to begin by stating their name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes in order that all who wish to speak may be able to speak heard in a timely manner. Scott?
Yes, sir. We have one hand raised. Macy, please unmute your mic.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Macy, you come right on. I'm assuming is it Macy or you're on somebody else's phone? Or
This is Macy.
okay. Come right on.
Okay, I can start now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so my name is Macy Rubel. I live at 6108 Bramlett Court. I've spoken the past few meetings, and as a reminder, I'm speaking about the Roland Grant subdivision. The developers intend to drain a pond, which will cause significant property damage to me and my adjacent neighbors, since we own the pond partially. So my neighbor is a school teacher, and she's raised her children here, and she wants to retire here as well. I've invested everything that I have in my home, and this is really all that all of our neighbors have. And one of our neighbors has had an engineer come by and do an analysis, and they've said that draining the pond would affect our well water. And so far, the apathy that we've received from the town has left us distraught. We've had an attorney who sent out a letter to the town and the planning board and to you. Please let me know if you don't have it. And we presented our case to the planning board last night, but they gave the excuse that any conditions for the pond remaining would have had to have been conditions during the rezoning hearing. And the fact is that we were told that by the developers that the pond would be left alone during the neighborhood meeting, which is why it was not an issue during the rezoning. What's essentially happening here is the developers are being rewarded for not disclosing information at the rezoning. If they would have done the right thing and told everyone that they wanted to drain the pond, it would have been added as a condition during the rezoning. But instead, they didn't disclose it, and they're being rewarded for it. And the planning board has just thrown their hands up in the air and said, we can't do anything because it's past the rezoning. And another argument that the town cannot make is that this is a private matter and they can't get involved with it. The land development ordinance states that the town must adhere to county and state laws that are more strict than the town laws. We sent out a letter from our attorney to you where the attorney highlights how it is illegal for the developers to drain our pond, and then it breaks the law. We put the town on notice of this, and the town is obligated to adhere to the law, and we will hold it accountable. And that's all.
Thank you very much. Adam, you want to comment or anything, or James, the town attorney? I'm sure you've been forwarded a lot of the messages.
Yes, we've received the information from the homeowner's legal representation. James, our town attorney, has received that information as well. The matter was heard by the planning board yesterday evening. The planning board voted unanimously to recommend approval and move it forward to the town board, and it will appear on your agenda for consideration at the October 5th town board meeting.
Will we hear anything from James, our attorney, between now and then for the board to?
I will have to discuss that with the town attorney and get back with you.
Okay. I think that would be, certainly good.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. Scott, do you have anybody else in the queue?
No one else, Mayor.
Okay. The public comment period is now closed. We're going to move to 6A. There are no items that were tabled. Okay, so we'll move to 7A. No public hearing scheduled for our meeting tonight. Maybe I should pull these out. There's no consent items. reserved for the ones that are pulled off of consent. 10A, Agreement Advanced Metering Infrastructure, AMI Project Phase 2 Implementation. More information about this agenda item will be presented by Town Manager Mitchell.
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this agenda item is to consider implementation of Phase 2 of the Advanced Metering Infrastructure Project. The town has been working with MeterSys on Phase 1 of moving forward the town's current automatic meter reading AMR drive-by meter reading system to an Advanced Metering Infrastructure AMI fixed-based meter reading system. Phase 1 installed network infrastructure consisting of 3 data collectors, 3 repeaters, and modified 7,400 meters for a consistent reading of approximately 4,200 existing accounts, as well as integrating the data collection software and town billing software and establishing a customer portal for which you viewed a preview of at our last town board meeting. Phase 1 demonstrated the functionality of the system. Phase 2 proposes the installation of further infrastructure and modification of approximately 4,600 meters for increased reading capability. The additional infrastructure will reinforce Phase 1 infrastructure for the reliability of reads and more consistent data collection, while also adding an estimated 7,800 accounts to the data collection system, or 90% of the town's metered accounts. The estimated cost of a Phase 2 deployment is $429,444, bringing the total cost of Phase 1 and 2 to $896,811. The cost is consistent with the original project cost estimate that was presented to this board in 2017. Installation of the Phase 2 equipment is expected to require 10 months for completion and is scheduled to begin in October of 2020, with Phase 2 completion sometime in July of 2021. There was a draft copy of the MeterSys proposal for the Phase 2 implementation provided in your agenda materials, and I am recommending authorizing that the town board authorize me to enter into an agreement with MeterSys for implementation of Phase 2 of the AMI project. There are sufficient funds in the AMI project ordinance for Phase 2 implementation, and so the recommendation this evening is by motion to authorize me as town manager to enter into an agreement with MeterSys for implementation of Phase 2 of the AMI project in the amount of $429,444, subject to review and approval of form by the town attorney. I'm going to submit the agenda abstract and supporting documents into the official record of the town, and I'm happy to answer any questions the town board may have.
This is something we plan to do.
It has been planned for a number of years. Yeah. Phase 1 is now complete, and again, Phase 2 would carry us forward to about 90% of our accounts being ready for this this new software and new capability.
I will certainly entertain a motion.
I do have one question, if I might, Mr.
Yes,
Mayor.
sir.
Mr. Town Manager, is 90% what the top will be? Or we see the system be able to absorb more of the remaining 10% as time?
Oh no, we do. As time goes on, we expect to be at 100%.
Okay.
And we expect to pick up new accounts from new subdivisions that come online. Obviously, the system will be capable of doing that. Those other 10% are sort of in satellite outlying areas that will require additional infrastructure and additional investment in order to capture those 10%.
Thank you, sir.
But the plan is to capture it.
You might mention about how long we've been in this process.
We started it in 2017.
So it's a process and probably a 4 or 5 year implementation.
It is. That is correct.
6 year maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is correct.
I will certainly entertain a motion.
Mayor, make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we move to, let's see, 10B, Infrastructure Agreement, Briar Gate Subdivision. More information, Adam Mitchell.
Thank you, Mayor. So the purpose of this agenda item is to consider approval of an infrastructure agreement between the town of Fuquay-Varina and Mattamy Homes, LLC, for utility improvements related to the Briargate subdivision. Mattamy Homes is developing property located at 5311 Old Powell Road as a single-family neighborhood named Briargate subdivision. The proposed 200 residential lot subdivision received amended preliminary plat approval from the Town Board of Commissioners during its regular meeting back on August 6th of 2018. The town's development ordinance requires Mattamy Homes to extend an 8-inch diameter water main along its Old Powell Road frontage. Per our town master public utility plan, the Old Powell Road water line size is designated to be a 12-inch diameter line to account for future development in the area. The Briargate subdivision construction plans included the installation of a 12-inch line, which does comply with our development regulations. Mattamy Homes is now requesting to be reimbursed for the oversizing of the water line based on the town's established oversizing rates as specified in Schedule D of our fee schedule. To establish reimbursement for the upsizing, an infrastructure agreement has been prepared. It was provided to you in your agenda materials. Elements of the agreement proposed for consideration are that the developer shall design, build, and construct the development in accordance with the town's development standards. The developer shall pay all applicable development fees, including system development fees, recreation unit fees, and other applicable fees as prescribed by the town's Code of Ordinances and Annual Budget Ordinance and Fee Schedule. The town shall be indemnified and held harmless from any claims for damage of any kind. Upsizing the water main will be based on the town's adopted fee schedule, again, Schedule D. The town's oversizing reimbursement will not exceed $14,817, and the agreement is in accordance with North Carolina General Statute 160A-320. I'm recommending that the town board approve this development infrastructure reimbursement agreement. We've worked with the town attorney and Mattamy Homes to prepare this agreement, and believe that it is in the appropriate form and consistent with what we've done in other applications. The town's enterprise fund has an established fund for infrastructure upsizing reimbursements, and there are sufficient monies for this proposed reimbursement. The Briargate subdivision will generate about $400,000 in water system development fees. So the recommendation to you this evening is by motion to authorize me as town manager to execute an infrastructure agreement between the town of Fuquay-Varina and Mattamy Homes, LLC, as presented and recommended, subject to the town attorney's review as to approval of form. And I am submitting the agenda abstract and supporting documents into the official record of the town. I'm happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
I think we're pretty good. This is pretty standard procedure.
It is, yes, sir.
If no questions, I'd entertain a motion on this.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to authorize the town manager to execute an infrastructure agreement between the town of Fuquay-Varina and Mattamy Homes LLC as presented and recommended, subject to the town attorney approval as to form.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Administrative reports, resolution, NC Drinking Water State Revolving Fund Program. More information about this agenda item be presented by Town Manager Mitchell.
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this agenda item is to consider adoption of a resolution in support of the town's application for funding to the North Carolina Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. The town of Fuquay-Varina is considering possible funding sources for water capacity expansion. This project includes the town participating in expanding the City of Sanford's water treatment plant and the conveyance system to transport treated water to the town's water distribution system. One potential funding source is the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality Drinking Water State Revolving Fund Program. This program was created with the 1996 amendments to the Safe Drinking Water Act and is administered by the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. Since this program is a federally backed program, the loans are subject to additional federal regulations and environmental reviews. The U.S. Congress provides funds for states to establish revolving loan programs for drinking water projects where the state must provide 20% matching funds. Currently, there is approximately $50 million in available funding via this program. Selected eligible projects, including water treatment plants and transmission systems, may receive low interest loans, half of the market interest rates, up to $20 million maximum. North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality conducts a fall and a spring application process to select funding projects based on established processes and criteria. It is unclear if the town can apply for both the water treatment plant and the conveyance system separately. However, we continue to explore that possibility with the Department of Environmental Quality. Part of the application process includes passing a resolution by the applicant's governing board to establish the intent for seeking project funding. The proposed resolution was provided in your agenda materials, and I'm recommending adopting the resolution this evening. There is no direct fiscal impact on this item at this time. The preliminary engineering report for the City of Sanford's water expansion plant expansion project is being prepared by Hayes and Sawyer, for which the town is participating at a cost not to exceed $200,000. That was approved by this town board at our last meeting. During the September 8th town board meeting, the town board approved a memorandum of understanding detailing the town's participation in the water plant expansion project. The memorandum of understanding agreement indicated the town's intentions to apply for funding to the North Carolina Drinking Water State Revolving Fund Program at that time. My recommendation to the town board this evening is by motion to approve the resolution in support of the town's fall 2020 application for funding for NC Drinking Water State Revolving Fund Program. Funding will be used towards the future water capacity as a part of the Sanford Water Plant Expansion Project. I am submitting the agenda abstract and supporting documents into the official record of the town. And I'm happy to answer any questions the town board may have. Again, the maximum is $20 million unless there is an allowance to be able to apply separate for both the water plant expansion project and the conveyance project. In total, the total project will be much greater than $20 million, so we will be looking at funding sources beyond just this funding source. But the terms and the conditions for this funding source are so favorable, it's to our advantage to go ahead and begin the process to apply. I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
No, I think it's part of that process that you've been working on to get us in position.
Yes, sir.
Any other thoughts or questions? I will entertain a motion on this.
Mayor Byrne, I move that we approve the resolution in support of the town's fall 2020 application for funding for NC Drinking Water State Revolving Fund Program. Funding will be used towards the future water capacity as part of the Sanford Water Plant Expansion Project.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We move to 10D, Delegate Contact Signing Authority, Assistant Town Managers. Delegate Contract Signing Authority, Assistant Town Manager. More information about this agenda item be presented by Town Manager Mitchell.
Thank you, Mayor. So the purpose of this agenda item is to consider a resolution authorizing me as your town manager to delegate the approval and execution of certain contracts to the assistant town managers. In support of the delivery of town services, the town has a frequent and reoccurring need to enter into a variety of contracts related to the purchase or lease purchase of apparatus, supplies, materials, or equipment, contracts for construction or repair work, contracts for information technology, hardware, software, and services, and delivery of miscellaneous services and professional services, for example, financial and design services. As the town continues to grow and deliver an increasing volume and variety of services to the public, there is an increased administrative burden associated with the organization's effective administration of contracting requirements. In the recent months, I have tasked our assistant town managers with reviewing all contracts for their respective departments concerning form and content. Now, part of that is just to make sure that they are familiar with what terms and conditions are in the contracts, and part of it is to be another set of eyes to make sure that if there is something that needs to be altered, we catch it before it comes to your attention. This internal adjustment has allowed greater focus on ensuring contracts advance budget goals and contract terms are favorable to the town, while allowing me to increase focus on organization-wide strategic priorities. In addition, the Finance Department continues to pre-audit all contracts for for sufficient funding appropriation as required by the North Carolina Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act. A logical extension of this internal organizational realignment is the delegation of the authority to execute and sign contracts to the respective assistant town managers, which will support efficient and effective internal operations while maintaining effective management oversight. The UNC School of Government provides guidance that responsibility for contracting should be allocated in a manner that best balances the need for efficiency and flexibility with the need to comply with legal contracting and fiscal internal control requirements. Delegation for contract signing authority to assistant manager level is common practice in North Carolina local governments of Fuquay-Varina size, and very large units of local government often delegate to the department head level. In the professional standards for contract signing, the delegation of contract authority to assistant manager level appropriately balances compliance, consistency, and efficiency for the town's current needs. And for this reason, I'm recommending that the town board adopt this resolution before you this evening, authorizing me as your town manager to delegate contract signing authority to the assistant town managers as recommended and presented. There's no fiscal impact associated with this action. Contracts will only be approved and executed by town management if an appropriation has been made by budget ordinance and has been pre-audited as required by the Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act. And so the motion recommended to you this evening is to adopt a resolution authorizing me as your town manager to delegate contract signing authority to the assistant town managers as presented and recommended. I'm submitting the agenda abstract and supporting documents into the official record of the town. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
And they'll still go, it'll go through James, the attorney,
Absolutely.
just like normal, and get that process approved.
That's correct.
And you're talking about doing it both for Mark and for Jim Seymour.
Yes, sir.
I think you're headed in the right direction.
Yes, sir.
With it, Adam. I would recommend it. I'd entertain a motion.
Mayor, so moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. We move on to other business. Manager's report. I don't know if you want to comment.
I do have a few things I just want to update the town board on this evening. First, as it relates to the Art Center, we have completed the creative crosswalks across Fuquay Avenue and Vance Street. If you haven't had a chance to see those yet, please take a look. Our Art Center is continuing to produce and broadcast virtual performances from the theater stage. And I recently hired David Wright for the theater technical director position. David's been working with the town for a number of years on a part-time basis, and we included this position in the annual budget as it was our plans pre-COVID anyway to begin ramping up activity in our theater. We still have those plans, and having David on board will get us prepared for when we are able to get back to
And you're doing some of that now. You're using him now, but on a small basis, I should say, or a limited number.
That's correct. That's right. As it relates to our Parks and Recreation Department, fall youth sports, for the most part, are going very well. Season play will begin this week in most of our sports. The South Lakes Greenway is currently closed for boardwalk replacement. It was a project that was approved by the town board in this fiscal year's budget. It was discovered, I do want to advise the board, it was discovered during the demolition of some of the areas, which we knew was a possibility, that conditions were in fact worse than were previously identified. There were some areas you just couldn't see until you started dismantling the boardwalks. And so quite a bit of wood rot in the wood piles. This greenway, as built by the developer of the subdivision, was done prior to the town having development standards for greenways. We actually have a sufficient standard at this point, but this particular greenway did not fall into that.
But it was, how long ago was it, Adam? It's been,
in the early 2000s.
yeah, it's been 15 years ago or somewhere in that range.
That's right. And so, as previously noted, there was a possibility that we were going to have to do more work once they got into the project. In fact, all 24 wood piles will need to be replaced. They're going to be replaced with concrete footings, and the entire boardwalk sections from Appalachia Lake, the access at Appalachia Lake and Jones Lake Road will be rebuilt. There is an additional cost of $29,000 to this project, and we are able to cover that in our current operating budget due to savings that are available due to not having a full fall sports menu of programs this year. And so we're able to cover that cost. Repairs should be completed and the Greenway back open by the first week of October. And while it is a bit more costly than what we had initially anticipated, these repairs will help ensure that these boardwalks will last for many, many, many years in the future, since they are concrete versus wood, which lie in a very wet, low-lying area. So overall, I think we're going to get a much better product. As it relates to public works, we recently hired Jerry Lee Birch as a debris equipment operator for the town. As it relates to information technology, we recently brought employees back to work from the teleworking status, and that was following the governor's move to phase 2.5 of the COVID response. This has generated some additional work for our IT department because they've had to work to get all of the off-site equipment back on-site. And additionally, they've also assisted in preparing some additional meetings off-site. For example, last night the planning board meeting happened at the Public Service Center so that we could host the Wake County Mayors Association meeting in this room last night. As it relates to the finance department, they continue to work with our auditors to complete the annual financial audit process, and our utility billing staff have been very successful in connecting all COVID-related unpaid residential customer accounts with financial assistance programs and establishing repayment plans consistent with the governor's executive orders. That's been a discussion topic amongst the communities here in Wake County and really, in fact, all around the state. But our finance department, particularly our utility billing staff, have done a good job connecting with customers that had past due accounts. In some cases are getting them some support that they need, and in many cases have, or in all cases have, developed repayment plans with the town. As it pertains to our police department, I've hired Officer Rama Jones. He has been sworn in and is now in field training. He's a dynamic young officer who's going to add a lot of value to our organization, I believe. And I also hired another individual, Philip Wallinger, who is also a dynamic individual. He'll be sworn in next Monday afternoon by the mayor and begin his field training shortly thereafter. We're currently interviewing 3 additional applicants for what amounts to 4 additional vacancies within the department. Employees attended, some of our employees in the police department attended diversity and inclusion training last week, and this was facilitated by True Pettigrew. Some of you may know True. He facilitates the barbershop rap sessions in both Fuquay-Varina and Cary. And we have 2 in-service police officer instructors that are attending a fair and impartial policing and explicit bias train the trainer course so that they can come back and train in service the rest of our workforce in the police department as a part of our continual training. And so we're excited to be sending these officers to this course. As it pertains to our fire department, there is the National Fire Prevention Association will be filming the installation of a Knox box in a residential home in Fuquay-Varina tomorrow. I believe all of you received an invitation via email for that. And progress continues on specification development for Fire Station number 4 and the replacement ladder truck. In the planning department, we hired Stephen Overman as our infrastructure plans examiner, and the Wake Tech Park and Ride location construction portion is now complete. We are waiting on Go Triangle to install the necessary signage, but we are expecting very soon that there would be a conversion of the Park and Ride, that the bus will now make a stop at Wake Tech on its way to Raleigh and Moore Square. So this is something that we've been working on. Town board has set as a vision and a goal we've been working on for a number of years. That project is now coming to fruition.
Keep us closely posted on that. It may be one that we'd like to ride that bus that day.
perhaps. We'll try to get a date closer to it. As it relates to the inspections department, I've hired 2 new field inspectors to fill vacancies in the inspections department, Pedro Aruda and Garrett Scott. We are still seeing strong numbers in permitting and certificates of occupancy through mid-September. So the housing market continues to be strong here in Fuquay-Varina. As it pertains to our engineering department, I informed many of you last week, Wilburn Road has been reopened, and the realignment of Bridge Street with the new portion of Northwest Judd Parkway is now complete. As I indicated at our last meeting, there was some opportunity for schedule creep with Norfolk Southern, and that in fact is going to happen. They have now advised us that they will install signals in late October. They're at least communicating with us, but this is now the 3rd or 4th time they've moved it back. Old Honeycutt Road and Purfoy Road improvements are now complete with the exception of crosswalk installation, which will be done here shortly. For public utilities, I hired Jeffrey Burnett as our utility line locator, and we have sent out requests for qualifications that have been issued for the water capacity conveyance system project, which is the transmission line from the Sanford water treatment plant to the Fuquay-Varina distribution system. It includes the transmission line, booster pump stations, and other appurtenances that would get the water from point A to point B. This is for the design of that work. Our Economic Development Director, Alyssa Bird, who many of you all met at the last meeting, has been meeting with local stakeholders quite consistently in the last 2 weeks. She's also met with state and county economic development officials to introduce herself and begin talking about vision and goals for our economic development priorities here in Fuquay-Varina. Our Human Resources Department is staying busy with the new hire process, and we also hired David Taylor as our new Safety and Risk Management Officer. You all probably know David. He was a police officer with our police department for many, many years, and has expressed an interest to move away from law enforcement, and this position, he had been going through training and education to be qualified for this position, so we're happy to have him still a part of our workforce and working in this new capacity. And Susan, our communications director, she continues to focus on website content development, social media content development, and she is working with a larger group of individuals on plans for Christmas in downtown Fuquay-Varina, which we'll have more information on later in the agenda.
And she's helping me with all this filming
That's right. The mayor's been pretty active here lately with filming as well. That's exactly right. Additionally, I advise most of you, or all of you really, in our downtown at their own convenience, Fuquay-Varina Parks and Recreation Department will feature a Halloween fall facade for family photo opportunities in celebration of the season. The display will feature a family-friendly area with seating and fall decorations. On the other side of the area that we have mapped out for this will be a graveyard scene with fun cutouts for the family to take pictures at as well. So a little bit of a softer photo op and a little bit of a scarier photo op. This display is within walking distance of downtown Fuquay-Varina and will hopefully be some seasonal fun for the entire family. We will do this from October 23rd through Saturday, October 31st from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., and this will be at Centennial Square, kind of in the grassy area where we have inflatables and the clown balloon arts for our Follow Me to Fuquay concerts. We have received a number of inquiries about will Fuquay-Varina be canceling Halloween? We don't change the calendar, and so Halloween will still be Halloween, October 31st. We will probably likely send out some messaging online encouraging subdivisions and residents in subdivisions to be smart and remember social distancing and sanitation and those types of things. But we are not going to be the Halloween Grinch and cancel
No way,
Halloween.
Jose, we're not.
That's right. So
There was a big discussion at the Wake County Mayor's meeting last night. I thought it was interesting to hear.
Aren't some towns
different
canceling it,
one-
Mayor?
What different ones were, were saying. In different communities, it's kind of like the Christmas parade. We were talking about that a little bit last night. In many communities, it's not a town function, at all. It's a chamber of commerce or a community.
JCs
or a
nonprofit.
community function. So it's treated a lot of different ways. But there are ways that we can do things, and I think Adam is right to try to give our little ones something to do during this COVID time, but to be safe in doing it. It needs to be very family friendly, distancing and that sort of thing. And that's
So,
Mayor, we got the best ever family Halloween costume, which I'm not telling y'all now until after Halloween, so y'all might steal it, but it's a good plan this year.
all right.
I'll be telling you
I'm
about
gonna
it.
look forward to seeing it.
Later down the road, not
All right.
tonight. Y'all be
I'll look
stealing my
forward to seeing
idea.
it. Yes, sir.
Come on, Brad, tell us what it is.
Nah, I'm watching y'all. I got my eye on you.
so to sort of continue the theme of fall and winter events, at least in 2020, as it pertains to our annual tree lighting, Christmas tree lighting ceremony. Again, due to COVID-19, social distancing and mass gathering restrictions, we are currently evaluating modifications to the annual Christmas tree lighting event in its traditional form. The Parks Recreation Department, the Arts Center, the downtown staff, they're working on preparing some plans for consideration for how we can still celebrate the Christmas season, but do so in a way that doesn't encourage mass gatherings and create issues from a social distancing and sanitation perspective.
Maybe we can have a Zoom.
We're trying to be creative and
Yeah.
think of a number of different scenarios.
Right.
Unfortunately, Wake County Public School System, they've canceled all their chorus programs in schools as well as sanctioned field trips, and so there's no opportunity for school choral groups to sing carols the night of the event, and it's not necessarily the best thing to be doing anyway during COVID with the spread of the virus. But there is no feasible way to offer a skate rink and have social distancing and sanitizing the skates. The sleigh rides are not really designed for social distancing. Just think about how typically it's shoulder to shoulder on the sleigh rides. And the sleds that we had last year, the vendors will not provide staff to manage the event due to social distancing and the inability to sanitize the sleds between riders. And I hate to say this out loud, but last but not least, it is a little bit difficult to social distance when you're sitting on Santa Claus's lap. And so we got to send a message up to the North Pole and think about how Santa may be able to interact with the youth in our community in a way that's safe for him, because at the end of the day, we all want him flying over Fuquay-Varina on Christmas Eve and treating us well.
You know,
Christmas
if
morning.
we could, if we did something virtual, it would be interesting if we could get Commissioner Harris to play, and all the rest of us try to sing a little bit. I don't know. Maryland
Well,
probably
that-
got the best
It might
tune.
go that. We're talking about a virus, and that in fact may go viral if you can do that online. So,
Singing is one of the worst things you can do to spread it too.
You've never heard me sing. Yeah, that might be good.
So given all these factors, the event in its traditional form will likely have to be modified. We do still plan to offer the Festival of Lights at the Fuquay Mineral Spring Park. We do plan to have our parking lots in downtown lit up like we have in years past. We do still plan to have Christmas trees at the Vance Street parking lot and Centennial Square and the Varina parking lot. It's just the event that surrounds it that we're having to rethink. So I'll continue to keep you updated as plans develop further in the process. Additionally, I wanted to talk about two other items this evening. The first being the strategic plan process, and I've got a few slides I just want to run through. In your agenda materials, I did include a strategic plan flow chart as well as a guidance document on the development of a strategic plan. And so, Scott, you're going to work on getting that presentation? No, I'm just looking for those slides I sent to you. So the purpose of this agenda item is for the board to receive a brief presentation this evening from me regarding the strategic plan development process and consider instructing me as your manager to begin the plan development. At our 2020 Town Board Strategic Planning Retreat, we began working on the initial stages of developing a strategic plan. Over the course of that 2-day retreat, board members participated in a strategic foresight exercise in which the board identified several trends that are expected to have a high impact on Fuquay-Varina in the years ahead. Following that exercise, we advised the board that we would be developing a framework for a strategic plan development for the town. And if not for COVID-19, we would have probably started this process sooner, but our attention got diverted to other more important issues at the time. However, we now are at the point where I'm recommending that the town board authorize proceeding forward with the development of the strategic plan. So what is a strategic plan? It is a guide that is used by many local governments to steer the use of investments, personnel, and resources to achieve a shared vision. Specifically, it results in a document designed to be a multi-year representation of the town's mission. It outlines what a community hopes to achieve through a long-term and annual goal-setting process and provides steps and a clear path for reaching those goals. It's designed to focus on a 5 to 10-year horizon. It is not intended to replace the annual operating budget, nor the 5-year capital improvement plan, but rather complement and guide both of those. The plan will include our core values and goal statements, the foundation for the town's mission statement. It will include a long-range objectives, which will further define goals. It will include multi-year initiatives, and these will be the action items that will be executed to achieve the objectives. And it will include annual tasks, which are captured in separate working documents for each department and involves a process for evaluating progress. So there's really 4 steps, just as I've mentioned. We're going to develop a vision statement. Fuquay-Varina will be a community that. What? We got to fill in that blank. A mission statement. The town of Fuquay-Varina will work to blank. Core values and goals. Some of the examples of those are economic vitality, inclusion and diversity, customer service, innovation, healthy community, safe community, etc. Doesn't have to be these. Typically, we're looking to identify 4 to 6 core values and goals, and we will work collectively to identify what those are. And then under each, we will identify objectives and initiatives. What do we want to achieve and how we're going to get there? So it's a 4-step process. What does an effective strategic plan do? It provides a framework to envision achievable goals, enact plans and allocate resources, and evaluate progress. Envision, enact, and evaluate. How will the plan be used in future years? In future years, a core element of the annual strategic planning retreat will include a progress report by town management on successes and gaps in advancing adopted objectives and initiatives. So we're not just going to develop a plan and stick it on a shelf. We intend annually to report to you through a dashboard, if you will, of how we are doing with our strategic plan in terms of our objectives and initiatives.
And be updating it.
We will. It's not intended necessarily to always be updated annually unless there are some new developments that occur. This is something that we sort of work within a framework over a long-term horizon. Mm-hmm. And so what is the end goal? Well, we will develop an outward-facing plan that is visible by the community as a whole, that is transparent and demonstrates the foundation for which the strategic plan and departmental strategic plans are built upon, that clearly identify the objectives and initiatives the town wishes to achieve, and that are used to inform the annual budgeting process. The following questions should be answered. Do our investments align with our strategic plan? As the town board guides management and staff through our budgeting process, through our 5-year capital plan process, the question we should always ask ourselves, once we have a strategic plan in place, do our investments align with our strategic plan? So my proposed schedule is that on October 20th, either before a town board meeting or in a separate workshop meeting, we develop a vision and a mission statement. Then on November 2nd, we will discuss and seek concurrence on 4 to 6 core values and goals. We'll either build that into our town board meeting if there is appropriate time, or we'll look to meet separately sometime around that November 2nd date. Then between November 20th and November of 2020 and January of 2021, the senior management team will develop proposed objectives and initiatives for your consideration. And then sometime in January, February of 2021, the proposed objectives and initiatives will be presented for discussion and feedback either prior to or at the town board's strategic planning retreat. Concurrently, during that time period, departments will also develop departmental strategic plans. These are not, again, meant to be a replacement to the operating budget or the 5-year capital plan. They're more or less high-level policy, high-level vision, and strategic identification of objectives and initiatives. They are not intended to be down at the 5,000-foot level where we get into the details like we do with a line item budget. Now, provided in your agenda materials was a guidance document, 4 or 5 pages, I believe, and included in that were links to other strategic plans in other communities here in Wake County. Having a strategic plan that is outward-facing and available to the public is something that a community our size or larger typically does. And so you'll see examples from Apex, from Wake Forest, from Garner, and it's now Fuquay-Varina's opportunity to develop this plan for ourselves, and that's what I'm recommending that we do. I really encourage you, while I think it will be a little bit more achievable for us to develop a mission and a vision. I think all of this is achievable, don't get me wrong, but I think it's going to be a little simpler for us to come up to terms and agreement, concurrence on a vision and mission. I think there will be greater discussion with respect to our core values and goals. And so I really encourage you to spend between now and early November the opportunity to review those strategic plans that the other communities have that we've provided links to. I think it will really help if you have an opportunity to review that prior to our discussion. It will really help you in your thought process and the feedback process as we're talking through building concurrence on our core values.
Mr. Mayor, I had a question.
Yes, sir. Please.
If you would go back to the previous slide, I just had a question about the process. And when I reviewed
This slide or this slide?
No, not that one, the next one.
I'm going to keep going.
The following,
All
next,
right.
right there, yes. I just had a question about the process. When you mentioned strategic plan and then the departmental strategy plans, are these two separate processes, or is this going to be incorporated into one where you would have the board to discuss policy and vision, and then the department, I think you said departmental strategic plans, would all of these be incorporated into one plan, or will the department heads have an operational plan and then the town board would have a policy or vision plan? I wasn't sure when I read that.
So at the end, it will be incorporated into one plan, but the departments department heads with management's input will develop their own strategic sort of one-page vision and mission for their department that will complement, almost as an addendum, to the overall larger strategic plan for the town.
Okay, so based on what we as a board identify as core values, vision.
Yes, sir.
And those kinds of things, it will be sort of the core guidance for the department heads to follow up and align themselves with the vision that we as a board have agreed upon.
You understand exactly.
Okay, I got it. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to be clear about that.
Yes, sir.
I think that's a good explanation, Bill, and I appreciate you bringing that to our attention.
Thank you.
I have a question too. We have talked in this last few years about plan for downtown and working on
Master
that.
plan.
Master plan.
Mhm.
So is that going to be any kind of part of this, or is
That's
that
not,
totally
that's not
separate?
necessarily a part of this. That would be a separate document that actually, in fact, Dawn and Alyssa are in the beginning stages of working through that process as well.
Okay, just checking.
Mhm.
Anything else, Adam?
So this evening, what I am looking for from the town board on this is just by consensus to instruct me to begin the strategic plan development process that would get us on a path of a schedule as I proposed.
I think it's the
one-
right thing to do, and I like it. You're kind of timing it with the retreat. You know,
That's right.
you have to back into things like this and provide the time frame to get there.
Yes, sir.
I had one other question.
Yes, sir.
This is really exciting because I think there's a lot of wealth in this process. Is there a fiscal note to this? Will there be a consultant coming in, Adam? Are you going to take the lead on this? How will this
The
process?
senior management team, myself, the 2 assistant town managers, perhaps some of our department directors may be tapped. We're going to do this internally.
Okay, all right,
Yes, sir.
all right, good, thanks.
Any other questions about them?
I think it's a really good idea because, you know, if it, you know, meshes with our annual budget, then I feel like we will be less likely to be making budgetary decisions in a vacuum if we've got this framework to work in.
You understand? Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Okay, so I feel we've got consensus here to move forward with this, Adam.
All right, very good. Well, I'll be back to you on October 2nd. I'll probably be communicating before that as we're beginning to shape up the agenda for October 2nd. If it looks like we can build this into our normal meeting agenda, or if we're going to need to meet in advance earlier, I want to make sure we do dedicate and allocate the appropriate amount of time for good discussion and feedback from the town board. So I'll be in touch with each of you about scheduling for that.
You want to comment on any of these other?
Yes, sir. One
Okay.
other one, we do have just some information. During our town budget workshop, I was asked at that time to come back and provide some information to the town board about a comprehensive list of transportation projects that the town staff was focusing on to better inform the board about prioritization of vehicle fee revenues that are being collected and set aside for transportation improvements. And so I did provide some information in your agenda materials, but we have since even developed that a little bit further. And so, Scott, those are those slides. That's right. And so on the screen in front of you, these are a list of transportation projects that town staff has been focusing on along with Campo and North Carolina Department of Transportation. And so some of these you certainly recognize and know. Some of these we've talked about, but maybe you haven't seen them in a comprehensive form like what you have in front of you. And so the first 5 projects are projects that we have actually committed funding to, town funding to already. Northwest Judd Parkway, obviously the bond referendum was a major contributor to that project. Phase 2 of the Sunset Lake Road widening improvement project. I mentioned tonight the Old Honeycutt and Pearl Road intersection project. The Northeast Judd Parkway and Broad Street turn lanes. This is a project that was funded in the last LAP cycle, but is on hold right now due to NCDOT funding restrictions. And then the South Judd, South Main intersection, also a project that was funded in the last LAP funding cycle that is presently on hold. And then there are some other projects that we've talked about in the past. 5 Points intersection reconfiguration. This is U5751. Unfortunately, we have some work to do on this project. It was originally planned for an earlier schedule. Due to funding woes at the DOT level, they have recently announced that they are having to move projects back. In schedule. This is one of those projects that has gotten kind of caught up into that. And so What I can say, though, is that staff is working very closely, myself included, with representatives from Campo and NCDOT to evaluate and assess if there are ways to move that project back up in the schedule. But it is planned to be completely 100% funded when it does happen by NCDOT through their State Transportation Improvement Plan, as is the Intelligent Signal System. This is the project that would coordinate and link all of the traffic signals in Fuquay-Varina together so that they operate and function more effectively and efficiently. And again, this project is funded entirely through DOT's State Transportation Improvement Plan. And then there are a number of projects that, if we are, desiring and willing and prepared to wait for the schedule that they are on, construction starting in 23, finishing in 24, there are a number of projects that we're going to benefit from with 100% funding from NCDOT through the NC 540 bonus allocation program. There are two projects, one that's a bonus allocation project and one that is a economic development project that do have transportation related costs to them, that if the town board were wanting to use some of the funds from the vehicle fee reserves that we are building up, those two projects may be projects that would be ideal candidates. One would be the Johnson Pond Whittitt Road roundabout, advancing that so that the impact or benefit of that happens before October of 23, October of 24. Even though we're 2 or 3 years out from there, if we wanted to advance that, we could put local dollars towards that project and try to tip the scales.
That is a very interesting area. I've been out there several times lately, and it's a dangerous.
It's a blind curve for
There's a lot
sure.
of growth out there.
Yeah, it's continuing to become more and more dangerous because of the growth. And I'd like to see us do a roundabout somewhere that would be
It'd be pretty neat there, Mayor.
Significant and help our community. So, but that's just
No, that's,
Adam, would be, and if we're interrupting you, getting ahead, then just say, Blake, be quiet. What kind of matching type stuff money would you say it takes for something like this?
well, we need to evaluate that. I mean, I think for a project like that, you probably at least need to be in the somewhere between 25 and 40, maybe upwards to 50%. So you're talking anywhere between $500,000 to $1 million of matching if you want it to move the needle and advance it. It's a $2.2 million project, so there's a potential there that we could move the needle. We'd have to have more dialogue and conversation with Campo and NCDOT to see how that would work.
You remember there was a rezoning and a preliminary subdivision approval that was done a few months ago, and that was one of the major concerns of people in that area was that intersection right there, and it's a hair-bend turn.
I think I'd like to have those conversations if that's a project that you're interested in and come back to the town board with some refined.
I think that would be a good one. I really do.
Yeah, I had concerns with that when we did that last rezoning, that
Yes, sir.
very thing.
Yep,
That-
we
that
talked
very
about it
interesting.
right here in this board meeting, we did. And additionally to that, we do have an economic development project that again has transportation components. The town board has committed to investing in that project in order to reallocate funds. We could potentially use those vehicle reserve funds towards that project versus general fund general dollars. They come out of two different. At the end of the day,
pots.
it's all town funds that go into or that invest into that project to the level that we've committed to. It's just which pot you would maybe particularly take it from. It's just a suggestion that for your consideration.
And that's a
I
project
think
that we
one of
are
the-
already doing. Once you say it's just a matter of moving money around
That's
on
right.
it versus what you proposed here in red. It looks like it's a way to do two projects versus one project.
That's true.
You know, the thing that I think we originally talked about was to using those funds for intersections too,
That's right.
or those areas.
I'm going to get to another slide here in
Okay.
a moment, but I do want to draw your attention.
ahead.
All of these projects here amassed to $156.6 million. That's a lot of transportation improvements in Fuquay-Varina in the next 10 years,
And that's not even the biggest project you don't even have in here,
being,
540.
well, that's right.
Interstate
That's right.
540.
That's not, that's
Some
exactly
some of these funds, I think, and Adam, you can probably describe it a little bit better, but they come out of certain pots of money. They have like state funds, then they have regional, and then they have, what's the next level
Well,
down?
there's a division or local, so there's
Division
state,
and then
regional,
local.
division, or local, that's right.
So there is a combination of the funds here that come out of different pots,
Yes, sir, that's correct.
which is very, very beneficial to us.
It is.
It's been it's hard for us here in Fuquay-Varina to get those regional projects, and we've gotten a couple of them moved up into that regional area. I know at least one of them, which it helps an awful lot.
Yes, sir.
Now, we got to have the money. DOT's got to have the money too, but that we're able to show the need, I reckon is what I should be saying.
So what we wanted to do is identify what the larger projects were, but also were there smaller projects that we could potentially use some of these transportation reserve monies towards that would advance those. And so, Scott, if you can switch to the next slide, or maybe I can here with this. Yep, I got it. And so these are some just additional projects that are under consideration that town staff is looking at. These are not under consideration by DOT. These are not under consideration by Campo. These are projects that locally we have looked at and said, is there a potential way to advance these projects? The Anger Road intersection, adding turn lanes into Judd Parkway. With that, we anticipate it's about a $1.5 million project. Holland and Purfoy intersection, a potential upgrade or roundabout there. I've got it highlighted in red. That's an awkward intersection as well, the way it's sort of designed. Mm-hmm. And with the growth that's happening on the southern end of our town, I can think of a couple of larger subdivisions, Del Webb with Carolina Gardens, Geneva. There's quite a few in that area. Quite a bit of development that's happening in that area that'll be going through that intersection likely as it comes back into town. And so potential upgrade or a roundabout at that intersection could be one that we would invest some local dollars to try to get it on a funding radar screen. This could be one that we potentially apply for LAP funds. With the 80-20, 20% local minimum match, may not score that well or be that competitive, but if we got a 30 or 35%, 40% match into it, being that it's only $1.5 million, well, you probably at that point move it higher up in the list. And so that's I think that's a potential project because of the development on the south end of town that we might wish to look at advancing at some point. Of course, one of the bigger elephants in the room is advancing development of the Fuquay-Varina Parkway. Right now, that road gets built contingent on development, really. Certain cross sections get built contingent on development, but really, for that thing to be completed in its finality, it's going to be as long or longer than what it took the town to develop and build Judd Parkway. And of course, that's a outer loop.
Yeah,
around.
We need to digest some of what we've got in Judd Parkway, and we're doing that. I mean, we've been how many years have we been on the southern part of Judd Parkway? I'm just thinking when it's going to roll off, when our payments are going to roll.
I'd have to go back and look at our debt schedule.
Okay.
Mayor. I don't know off the top of my head. We've talked about in the past the Hilltop Needmore stream crossing and roadway there. Again, it's an estimated $10 million project. Does not score well at all. Does not score at all, really, on the DOT funding formula. So that's a potential project in the future. Broad Street Extension, we've talked about that in the past. Sunset Lake Road to Johnson Pond Road, another $10 million project. Road access improvements from Phelps West Road, NC 55 intersection, that's about $500,000. And then two pedestrian projects, the Ennis Street Railroad Crossing and the Academy Street Railroad Crossing. These are both items that have been identified in our pedestrian master plan that there is no funding plan for. One's a $2 million estimated project, the other one's a $1 million estimated project. If we wanted to advance some of our transportation improvements as it relates to bike and ped, this could be two projects that we could put some of these vehicle fee reserves into to try to move these projects forward, as well as the Johnson Pond Road Mill Creek Drive intersection. As more of that area develops, that intersection will need to be widened and improved as well, and that's a potential project we could put funds into. So I think what I've heard the board say tonight is perhaps you'd like for us to focus on the Johnson Pond Whitted Road intersection, which is a pretty dangerous blind curve, as a first step, but maybe as a second step, is there interest in pursuing Holland Purfoy Road intersection or the pedestrian projects? And before you answer that question, it may be a moot point, because you probably need to understand what we have in that fund in terms of local monies. We probably really only have enough money as it stands right now to try to help move the needle on only one of these projects. Our estimated balance at the end of the fiscal year that we're in now, fiscal year 21, which ends June 30th of 21, would be about $665,000 to $700,000. We would not get to the $1 million mark in reserves till sometime at the end of fiscal year 22, June 30th of 22, or perhaps even fall of 22 is when we would get to about $1 million in reserves in that account set aside.
But you still got to be looking for matching funds. There's a lot of things you've got to.
That's right. There's still
Yeah.
That's right.
I think to
still
me,
gotta apply for lap funding.
to me, that's a good one to really be, looking at.
And mind you, if you're willing to wait till 2024, 100% of that project will be paid for with the bonus allocation funds.
I think it's trying to find matching money and leveraging is maybe some of this 540 bonus allocation money, they will they step up and know that sooner if we're doing
We can
matching
explore
money with
that.
it?
We have not asked that question yet.
I mean, if
And
we
I
pay-
think, and to be honest with you, I think they may if we
Have
were
a chance to save some money
if
for
we
them.
if they were saving some money and we were putting some skin in the game, they would advance and accelerate these.
So I wonder if you said, for instance, you're the expert, not me, but if you had, hey, we'll put 20% money in there. We get 100% from you anyway if we just wait, but we'll do 20% now, which then leaves half the money to go do the other project we're talking about. Maybe we get two projects done here in
That's
this
a
way
possibility.
at a sooner date. Because, I mean, as we've said in the past, and I continue to say, traffic and transportation is the number one concern of the citizens. And so
What
these-
you've got to realize right now is that transportation is down. Their collections are down everywhere. A lot of people are doing Zoom meetings and not going into the office every day, and so it's much different. And so what Adam's working with, especially with Campo, is a reduced type budget in a lot of different ways. But I think in some things, the planning and being able to have something that's, what do you call it, ready?
On the shelf, ready.
On the shelf, on the shelf, Adam calls it on the shelf, where we can pull it out and say, okay, we can go with this one now. And I like that aspect of it. It's helped us before.
Well, we've identified two, if you take out the economic development project, we've identified two roadway projects and two pedestrian projects. Let us now go back, look and see what we might be able to leverage out of NCDOT, and then we'll come back to you with the report. Primarily what I wanted to do this evening was deliver on what you requested, which was a comprehensive look at both larger and smaller transportation and bike ped projects that we're focusing on as a part of our overall strategy.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
And so then finally, you do have a first reading in your agenda materials. This is a zoning map amendment and land use plan amendment, Carolina Land Group for Rogers Road, several parcels and addresses along Rogers Road. This is a first reading, so familiarize yourself with that. When you have an opportunity, you will see it on the October 5th Town Board agenda. I have nothing else to report to the board tonight under other business, Mayor. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. I think we're okay.
All right.
And we do have a short closed session tonight.
Yes, sir.
Okay, town board comments. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir, Mayor, thank you. Today, I got to participate as a virtual guest for Ballantyne Elementary School, and they, in their social studies class, were learning about government and how government works. And they, and so that interviewed me and asked me about trying to run for office and what we do and how they can get involved and how we play and stuff. And this is a class of third graders, and what always is exciting to third graders, you know, is we're talking a little for a moment just because the parents are on the line about traffic and taxes, but the kids don't care about that. So we talk about parks and recreation. That's what the kids love to hear about. Where we're going to build the next playground at, where's the next sporting field going to be built at. And so they really liked that and learned about that. And they likened the 5 of us on this board as Congress and the mayor as president. And that's what they described. And I said, well, it's sort of, not really how the whole thing works, but a little bit. And so that's what they're learning in school about it all. And so that was good. And it was neat. So it was about a 10 or 15 minute call, and the kids were excited. And the biggest thing they also want to know is why the how the town charter was made, for instance, being 5 members and a mayor, and where that came from, and does it change each year? And they see, this is one thing I'll say, and I'll be quiet. You know, it's interesting how much negativity comes from federal and state and other towns' politics. And they asked me, they said, do y'all get along? Do y'all not like each other? Do y'all like each other? And I said, as far as I'm concerned, everybody on the board are friends with each other. I said, we get along, we work well together. I said, everybody has different opinions, and sometimes we make different decisions or have different thoughts on something. But I said, that's part of government, and just like you grew up playing with your friends, I said, that's okay. But at the end of the day, we treat each other fair and kindly and get along. And I told them, I said, don't let state and federal politics and how they treat each other blind you or make you think that's what happens everywhere. And so they seem to really appreciate that and like that, and thought it was good that we all can have different views but be respectful and nice to each other at the same time. And so it was a good meeting. Enjoyed that today, and thought y'all would enjoy hearing about that.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Mayor Pro Tem. Commissioner Smith.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Real briefly, the mayor and I think Commissioner Wunsch and Commissioner Gardner and I attended the grand opening of the AFC Urgent and Family Care Facility today. Very nice grand opening, very nice facility. But I want to talk just a minute about our town staff. One of the things that I enjoy hearing when you go to things like that is when the developers and landowners and property owners come to us and tell us how easy our staff was to work on in this project. They specifically called out our inspection staff. They mentioned our police department that had some vandalism, and the police department came and met with them. And they specifically by name called out Pam Davidson, our planning director, for her vision and her ability to work with them on upfitting an old building. They said it could have been difficult, but it wasn't. And they were very complimentary of our planning staff and our inspection staff, particularly how the building process went. And as a commissioner, when you go somewhere, sometimes you hear horror stories, but to hear these people come and say, you have great employees who are going to bring great value to the town for years to come, that meant the world to me to be there. So I just wanted to call them out and say, great job. It was enjoyable. And I heard it from multiple people, not just one. Multiple people had that conversation with me, and I just want to give a shout out to those folks for a job well done.
Well, great. Thank you for that, and we'll make sure that they get that message loud and clear.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On last Wednesday and Thursday, I attended a virtual board meeting for the North Carolina League of Municipalities. And at that board meeting, there was a presentation about adaptive leadership. There was a presentation by Catherine Turner, who identified adaptive leadership as being the method now to address a lot of the unique changes in our culture and our country. And she talked about the changing social landscape. She talked about the idea of inclusive leadership, which is a sort of a new term, but it fits very well with what's going on now. She related her presentation to recognizing the times that we live in, which are so unique as far as COVID-19, as far as the issues around diversity and protest all over the country. And she focused on the challenge that presents to us as leaders and how we can adapt our leadership style to address those particular kinds of concerns. And that was an outstanding presentation and well received by the board. The board also had presentations by our state treasurer, Dale Folwell, as well as the governor made a presentation, as well as Dr. Mandy Cohen. And all of them shared information, of course, about COVID-19, as well as the care money that's coming to North Carolina and how different cities are getting different amounts of monies when it comes to the care money that's coming to North Carolina. Also, the league is in the midst of developing this new legislative priorities to take to the General Assembly, and they encourage those of us who might want to provide some input to share with the league if we want to, in regards to any kind of particular ideas or interests we would like to have the league to advocate and share with the legislature. There was one other report, and it was, of course, we have a financial report, and they talked about the impact of the loss of sales and occupancy tax revenue. That was very critical. We also had economists to talk about from a national perspective. The GDP has dropped about 31%, and how that's impacting cities all over as far as their fiscal strength. They felt that there is going to be some volatility in the marketplace still because of rebounding from COVID-19, but they felt very optimistic that that's going to be, positive as we move into opening up the country again. So it was a very good meeting. I enjoyed the conversation, enjoyed the opportunity to participate. The league is also appointing a racial equity task force to address issues of racial equity in areas of how services are delivered equitably in municipalities, how hiring practices, HR practices are implemented, police performance. They are going to focus on those particular concerns. And I have been appointed as a co-chair for that committee by the league, along with Jennifer Robinson from Cary. So we're working to bring a conversation to elected officials throughout North Carolina, because on this task force will be elected municipal officials from all over the state, and we want to move forward with try to develop some concrete strategies where we can address and promote and provide cities with some recommendations as to how to further promote racial equity and to address those concerns.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Harris. Adam, do you have any idea about any money that we'll be getting, any dollar amount that we're going to be getting? Commissioner Harris spoke about the municipalities getting.
Yeah, so we've made application for reimbursement to FEMA, and we are awaiting for Wake County to open up their next round of application process for CARES funding. I attended the Wake County Managers Association, or managers, not association, but meeting that we have every other month. And at our last meeting, we discussed Wake County opening up those funds a little more to the municipalities and being a little bit more clear in what their...
They did some of it, but it really didn't do as good a job last time.
Yeah, there was a little miscommunication, I think. Most of the municipalities were of the interpretation that the county preferred for us to seek reimbursement from FEMA before seeking reimbursement from the county, so that the county could stretch the CARES dollars further. It turns out that there was a handful of communities in Wake County that just proceeded to seek reimbursement directly from the county, and the county reimbursed them. And so I believe that we're all on the same page now, and November will be their next application period, and we will submit for funding reimbursement there. The town doesn't have a there are certain things that the CARES Act will fund and refund, and the town's cost as it relates to COVID-19 was primarily in teeing up our employees to be able to telework, buying laptop computers that we could send home with them to be able to do their work effectively and efficiently. In some cases, mobile devices. In some instances, we got some of those things donated to us, and so we didn't have a cost associated with it. In some instances, we did have a cost associated with it. Primarily the communities that are getting the I'll use Cary, for example. They got a fairly substantial reimbursement from Wake County for what they called hazard pay, that they compensated some of their employees for working during a period of time during the coronavirus process. And so not all communities did that. We did not. Most communities in Wake County did not. Cary did. And as a result, that was a reimbursable expense.
I thought we did that on some employees.
We did not.
We never did it.
That's correct. And most towns did not.
Okay.
However, we're evaluating all of our options available to us.
You didn't have any inspectors, or you just talked about doing it? You never really.
We evaluated it.
Okay. I was thinking we did something for firemen and police.
We did not.
Okay. All right. So about how much are we looking at? I mean, that's the question.
Somewhere in the neighborhood of 30,000.
Okay, so that's not very much money then.
No.
Okay. All right.
And I could get a refined number for the board. That's just an estimate.
That's the estimate. That's fine. Okay, Commissioner Wunsch.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to first wish Commissioner Harris a happy birthday. It was his birthday last week. And,
Thank you.
somebody put a comment.
You might talk into that microphone right there.
Yes, somebody put a comment. I was just wishing Commissioner Harris a happy birthday. It was his
Thank
birthday
you.
this past week. And somebody put a comment on my page that looks like he's getting younger. And so I love that fountain of youth, but it's
Oh, that made me feel good, Jason.
yeah. So I wanted to pass that along, and I wanted to thank the town for the plan, the card. I lost my grandmother last week, but she was 93 years old, and she spent time here in Fuquay. She lived here for a little while. She came to see the mayor, and she lived with my parents while she was battling dementia. But she passed away at 93 years old. I wasn't able to go to the funeral, but was able to attend it via Zoom. And so I was able to see everything. They had very few people there. It was in New York, and they're very, very cautious. Also enjoyed the ribbon cutting today. It was just good to be back at a chamber event and good to be around people and to celebrate the opening of a much-needed business and a good location with some really nice, they had some really nice equipment in there, including the ability to do x-rays, which I think the people of the town will appreciate, and just some good amenities to help when that type of help is needed. And the chamber said that they were going to be doing more of these now, so they're going to be back in the swing of doing the ribbon cuttings, which was good to hear. So enjoyed that, and that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wunsch. Commissioner Gardner.
Yes, I wanted to let our town manager know that I've heard several good comments about the 9/11 video.
Good.
I think that was well received, and I had missed the original date when some of the commissioners went to tour the hospital in Holly Springs, and I got to go last week. And we are just very fortunate to have a facility of that caliber that's going to be this close to us. I was very impressed. And we had a nice group from a lot of different places, including the Holly Springs Town Board, who were there for that tour that day. It was just impressive. I was also at the ribbon cutting tonight. That is a very highly visible corner in our town that has been vacant for an extended time now. It is so good to see it occupied, and to see it occupied with a business that fits that unusual configuration of that lot so well. It's kind of it's a lower level lot, not at street level, and this is going to be a really good fit. And I wish them well in that location. And I too enjoyed being back at a chamber event, and I thought people were very conscious of social distancing, and there were a number of masks we had to, before we toured the building, we all had to have our temperature checked. So it was a different kind of ribbon cutting, but it was
you didn't want to be the first patient, right?
No,
That's right.
no. But I think it's going to be a real asset for our community, and it was really good to get back to that and to see that corner used as it's being used now. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Gardner. You know, I would make a couple comments about the ribbon cutting today too, and I think that I got a lot of comments about our staff, Pam Davison particularly, and I looked at the site and really saw a lot of improvements that were made to that site. I try to be a walker, and I walk by there a lot, and they've got a nice ramp now that comes off of Main Street and goes down to the site. And I think that is indicative of forward thinking and working with developers to try to get the very best, out of the site that they could. And I commend our staff and Pam in particular for the work done. And it's pleasing to me, not only for us to hear it, but for the developers to mean, what they're saying and are appreciative of how they could work with a staff to accomplish their common goals. And many times these developers are coming, they're dealing with multiple communities. And so they know when people are sincere and when they really want to do a good job. And that's the part they were trying to get across to me. I'll mention a few things that we've done and a couple things several things coming up. We've done a filming for the Piney Grove Baptist Church. They will be celebrating their 200th anniversary, which is really a big deal. You start saying 200 and you almost think you're in Europe. Those are big numbers. We also did one for the Briargate subdivision, and Susan Weiss, she helped me with both of these, and I appreciate it very much, Susan's commitment and help. We had a Campo meeting, and I also that day, I forgot how many things I had going on, but I got to Ronnie, the former mayor of Garner, Ronnie Williams' funeral, to the funeral home there. And we hosted last night the Wake County Mayors Association here and had the different mayors from Wake County here. Adam, Jim Seymour, Rose, and Teresa helped with it. I asked Adam to make a presentation and to center around two things that I think he does an excellent job at. He does a good job at a lot of different things, but two that were significant. One was a little bit involved in Scott, but it's about the technology that's in this building. You know, all of us just recently got back from going through the hospital over in Holly Springs, and Adam, I can't remember, it was $1,100 and some a square foot.
Yes, sir.
Is what that building cost. Now, this building, we're in it a lot more reasonable.
Fraction of that.
A fraction of that. But also, we were able to take this building apart and put it back together and invest in that technology. And people got to go around the building and see how we used it in planning, in inspections, in different areas of our building, and we're able to communicate it back to staff and back to our customer. I mean, it's really, the value comes back to the customer, and it's very user-friendly, and I think we surprised a lot of the...
We wowed them.
We wowed them.
A lot of the mayors seem to be very envious of what we have here.
They really did. And the other thing that I asked Adam to talk about, and I think it's something that he's does an exceptional job at, is the most important asset that we have here at our town is not in bricks and mortar. It's in our people, under our employee. And Adam and his team do an excellent job in managing and directing our staff to complete goals and objectives that we want to be completed. And Adam talked a little bit about how he goes about it on a daily basis, and you know, talked about his team. And I think this was well received as well. And Teresa and Rose really took excellent care of us as well. And Jim Seymour was, you know, Jim's always good at tours. I think they enjoyed Jim taking them about, and he was bragging on the building pretty awful too. You know, I mean, Jim is really the, and I hate to use the word, the founding father. He's one of the founding fathers of this building, because he's the one that helped overlook the taking it apart and putting it back together again.
He was we'll call him project manager. I don't want him asking everybody to refer to him as father from now on. So we'll call him the project manager.
Project manager. Adam's got a good word for it. Okay, this coming week, let's see, Lincoln Heights second graders. I'm virtual meeting with them. That's on the 25th. The NC Metro mayors. Adam and I'll probably be listening on Zoom about that too. And you know, on these meetings, we hear from the governor and Mandy Cohen, and we kind of get to really understand what is taking place at the larger cities our size and larger throughout North Carolina. And it's been a very informative group. I've always learned an awful lot from the Wake County Mayors Association, but I can tell you this, both Adam and I have learned a tremendous amount from the Metro Mayors Association, because we continue to grow with the census coming about. You know, it's going to be interesting to see where we rank statewide and the size of our community. as it is with other municipalities throughout the state. And, but it's a great organization, and Bo Mills is doing a great job with it. This coming Sunday, the 27th, I will speak at the Piney Grove Baptist Church's 200th anniversary celebration. We have a police officer swearing in on the 28th, and speak to the Cub Scouts Pack 320 on the 29th, and then a Centennial Authority meeting on the October the 1st. Sort of hard to believe that we've moved into the fall season, but it truly does feel good outside to me. Now, I don't have anything else. Adam, do you have anything else you want to?
No, sir. Just closed session. Recommended to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143, 318, 11A3, attorney-client privilege.
Take a motion.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? And this is a short, kind of a short one. It's what you think. It's not going to be that long.
It's my goal.
Update's your goal. Okay. So we'll just we'll stay here. I got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.